Welcome to 20 Minutes Self-Development with me, your host, Tam Dillon. 20 Minutes Self-Development, the podcast that's all about focused, effective self-development, one tool at a time. In each episode, I'll be introducing you to a specific practice or technique, and I'll be diving into why it matters, how it works, and how you can integrate it seamlessly into your daily life. In just 20 minutes, we'll get to the heart of personal growth and insights that make meaningful change feel both accessible and achievable. Let's get into today's episode. Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of 20 Minute Self-Development. So I'm going to be hanging on to the Otter Tarot Guidebook Major Arcana theme because I did waffle on quite a bit about the Lover's card last week. So I'm sure you're all like, well, Tam, what more can you tell us about the Lover's card? So here I am. Let's chat a bit more about the Lover's card. So over the last two episodes, I've been chatting about my take on the journey through the major arcana cards. And I've chatted a bit about the self, which is the Fool, the High Priestess, and the Magician. And then I spoke about preconditions in last week's episode, which covered the Empress, the Emperor, and the Hierophant. And from here, we now move our journey into the Lover's card. In this next phase of the journey is what I call knowledge of the self. And this isn't a final destination like, oh, you arrived. It's actually a living, breathing part of the path that evolves over time, and it's at the end. The Lover's card is like at the center of this, and it's not the romanticized version of the Lover's card. I know a lot of us, when we think about the Lover's card, we think, oh, love and relationships and, life being all warm and fuzzy. So I'm not talking about that version of the Lover's card. I'm talking about the true essence of what it means to choose yourself. So I'm getting into the true relationship with yourself, where you define things like your values, your beliefs, your inner compass. The Lovers marks this moment for us when the self begins to take shape, but on a conscious level. And while the Chariot and the Strength cards follow and support this journey, as you see as I unpack this episode, it's the Lovers that really sets the tone. So that's why it's going to be more of the focus for this episode. So the Lovers, choosing who you are. The Lovers card is, like I say, it's so often reduced to just relationships and attraction. Anytime you put the Lovers card down for someone, they're like, yeah, lover's gonna arrive. And it's like, no, there's so much more to it than that. Really it marks this moment of inner alignment when you step out of the framework that's offered to you by the Hierophant. And I covered this framework in last week's episode. If you haven't listened to it, go back and give it a listen. And it begins to define your identity on your own terms. So the Empress and the Emperor and the Hierophant have all had their say about who and what you should be and what you should look like and all those things. But the Lovers is where you're like, hey, who do I actually want to be? The things you taught me in school or in Sunday school or in wherever, do those things serve me? Do I believe those things that you taught me? So the Lovers is where you're starting to establish the self. And when we're establishing the self for the first time, we're looking 7, 8, when you're becoming your own little personality. Like, I've heard parents say that so many times about their kids. They're like, oh yeah, they really are just becoming their own little personality. Yeah, they're establishing themselves. And here's the thing, is that you don't establish yourself once and then that's it. You're like, okay, cool, I've established myself. This is Tam for the rest of your life. Like, I haven't had the name Tam for my whole life. I've gone from Tamarin to Tammy to Tam. So even my name has changed, the nicknames I've given myself over the years. So establishing the self is not a one-time thing. It's something that you'll do consistently throughout your lifetime. as your beliefs change, as your morals change, as your values change, your priorities change, so your environment changes, all these things are going to change. So establishing the self is something that you will continue to do, but it's something that you will always do on your own terms. You decide those things for the self. That's what establishing the self is about. This is right here where free will steps in, where you have the space to ask yourself questions like, what do I believe in? What do I believe in? Me here, not everyone else around me. What do I stand for? Not what do the people around me stand for? What do I stand for? I know what they stand for, but what about me? What kind of life do I want to live? What kind of person do I want to be? And there's nothing static about the lovers. Like I said, there's nothing static about it at all. It speaks to movement and growth, to that ongoing process of refining who you are. And as you evolve, your choices and relationships, they're going to evolve with you. Every decision, every partnership, it becomes a mirror reflecting the state of your inner self. And the key here is discernment. The Lovers doesn't ask you to just blindly accept society's version of right or wrong, nor does it suggest rejecting everything out of rebellion either. Instead, it's asking you to sift through the noise, choose what resonates, and build a path that feels authentic. And that act of choosing, of taking responsibility for your beliefs and your actions, is so sacred, so sacred. And it's not a once-off moment either. And on a spiritual path, we re-encounter the Lovers again and again. Like I say, you will come back and re-establish yourself over and over as you grow and progress and expand and you learn more. Perhaps there's values and ethics and morals you've never even considered before until you had an awakening in your life. Wow, I really never thought about that. I need to revisit my values. I need to revisit my ethics and my moral compass and then make some adjustments there. So it really is. It's about sifting through everything that you've been given in your preconditioning stage. This is why we go and do the work of the preconditions, so we know what the preconditions look like. And deciding what from those early formative years actually do align with us. Your parents have always told you to be a dentist, be a teacher, whatever. Do you want to do that? Is that something that you want for yourself? And have you ever stopped and asked if that's something you want for yourself? Or did you just blindly go along with, my parents always said, this is what I should be. Maybe you're a horrible dentist. Your parents don't know that. They're not living your life. That's the thing. That's where we go from the formative foundational things of the Empress, the Emperor, and the Hierophant. They're not there to define us. They're there to give us foundations on which to build who it is that we choose to become. Because maybe we do land up being a horrible dentist, and your parents are always like, well, you'll be a fabulous dentist. So you go off to dentistry school, and now you have the nickname, the butcher dentist. Did you want to be a dentist in the first place? Likely you probably didn't. Maybe you even pass out at the thought of your blood or anything like that. So coming into this stage of life, this establishing the self, is so important, because here is where you define whether or not you are living life for you, all based on what the external world believes you should have. Let's have a look at how the Chariot and the Strength card tie into this. So because these three cards form this section called Knowledge of the Self. So the Lovers is where we establish what the self is going to look like. So what we're doing now is we're going to hop into our chariot, being like, okay, cool, I know who I am. Let's take myself out for a test drive in my chariot. Okay, you're getting the picture of what the chariot's going to be doing. So once you've defined who you are, you're going to drive your chariot out into the big wide world, and the world is going to test you. The world is going to test that knowing of the self that you have established. So you're like, I know myself, I know my values, I know my morals, I know my beliefs, I'm firm, I'm solid in them. You get in your chariot and you drive out into the big bad world, and the big bad world bites back and says, well, are you ready? Are you sure? And you're like, wow, am I actually sure? And you start to falter a little bit, and you start to get a little bit shaky. So the chariot is about testing the self that you have established. How strong are you? How sturdy are you in the self that you have established? The chariot represents mastery of will. It doesn't rely on external control. The reins are gone. Like the chariot that you hopped in to go out into the big wide world had no reins. And like you get in and it goes, all right? Now it's all about internal alignment. If you are internally aligned, your chariot will drive you forward down the right path. You don't need reins. But if you're not in alignment, your chariot's going to be like, where you want me to go? Like, I'm not entirely sure where north is right now. Like, maybe you should take the reins, and the chariot doesn't know how to drive itself. And it's about choosing to stay the course even when life throws obstacles or distractions or temptations your way. So when you've been tested on your beliefs and your values and your morals, and your boundaries are being pushed at, all these things that you have established that make you, that you have defined for yourself, and the world is pushing back on it. They're throwing stones under the wheel of your chariot, trying to throw you off course, putting speed bumps in your way. How sturdy you are standing in your chariot is going to denote how well you do hitting those speed bumps and those stones that are being thrown in your way. Because life is always going to send you challenges. Challenges in life are not going to go away just because you've mastered yourself. No, you've mastered yourself so that you can navigate the challenges with a whole lot more ease. So, like I say, it's about choosing to stay the course even when life is throwing these obstacles and these distractions and questioning your beliefs and saying, oh, you believe this, but are you sure? Have you come to my church yet? Or, have you tried my way yet? Maybe you should try my way of chopping chicken because it works better than your way of chopping chicken. You've chosen your beliefs, you've set your values, but will you walk in them when it matters? Are you going to keep chopping your chicken the way you chop your chicken because you know that the way you chop your chicken works for you? Tam, she likes to make things absurd to get the practicality side of things down. But very in all seriousness, you establish these things for yourself. You have made those choices for yourself. You're like, this is who I'm going to be. I'm in my chariot and I'm driving it out into the big wide world. No, look, Ma, no reins, no hands, Ma. And you're going to get tested on that. And if you stand firmly in your beliefs and your values and your morals without being knocked out of your chariot at the smallest little stone in the road, that is self-mastery. So you've established the self, now you're mastering the self because you're like, yep, my values are holding fast. Yeah, my ethical compass is holding fast. I'm sticking with it. I'm holding true to my boundaries. And that is what self-mastery looks like. That is the chariot. The chariot asks you to move forward with focus and intention. It asks you to direct your energy with precision. It doesn't mean you won't encounter doubt or difficulty. Like you're going to have the stones and the speed bumps in the road. It means that even when shadow aspects arise, you meet them with self-awareness and determination. You keep moving forward in your chariot. Still, look, Ma, no hands, no reins. Okay, you're not grasping for reins and control and, oh, my chariot's going off course. If your chariot is going off course, maybe do some reestablishing of the self again. And that's the real test. Can you stay rooted in your truth when the world pushes back? Think about that. Take some time. Really, really mull that one over. And while you're mulling that over, let's chat about the strength card. Strength, holding steady without force. So eventually you're going to be tested not just by the world, but by your own endurance. That's the realm of the strength card. Strength teaches us that true fortitude is quiet. It doesn't roar. When you look at the traditional Waite-Smith strength card, everyone looks at the lion. They're like, yeah, strength like the lion. No, look at the lady. Look at the woman on the card. She is the embodiment of strength. Okay, we tend to look at the strength card backwards. The strength card doesn't roar. Like I say, it's not the lion on the card. It's strength doesn't need to dominate. It doesn't need to roar like the lion. It doesn't need to have strength like the lion. Fortitude simply is. It's this steady presence that remains grounded in compassion for yourself and for others. That, my friends, is strength. The lady on the strength card is the strength, not the lion. You're all looking at it wrong. Okay, go back and relook at the strength card. The Lovers card asks you to define your truth. The Chariot card asks you to live that truth, and the Strength card asks you to live it gently. That's why I love the Strength card so much, because people look at it and they're like, yeah, strength, like the lion, I'm fierce, I can handle anything. And it's saying, no. What's your compassion like? How strong is that? Challenges are going to come. They are going to test your patience. They're going to test your resolve. They're going to test your sense of self. But strength doesn't fight them. It meets them with grace. It says, I know who I am and I don't need to prove it. Man, I love the strength card. So knowledge of the self is not a fixed point. It's this rather a commitment to knowing, choosing, and re-choosing yourself over and over and over again. Keep coming back to self. Keep coming back to reestablish yourself as much as you need to, so that when you hop on into your chariot and you head on down the bumpy road, you're not going to get thrown out the chariot at the first sign of, are you sure about that belief? How strong are you in that belief? And also you're not driving down the chariot road raging at the bumps in the road. You're putting along gracefully in your quiet fortitude. So knowledge of self is this commitment to choosing yourself over and over and over. The Lovers invites you into that first sacred act of self-definition. If you have not done the beautiful, profound act of establishing yourself on a conscious level, honey, go and do yourself a favor this week. Like, this is Tam's homework for the week. Go re-establish yourself, okay? Go and define those things for you, because those things are important. It's important to define that stuff for yourself, because that is how you know that you're living in authenticity and that you're not living in someone else's authenticity. The Chariot supports you in living in those choices. The Chariot's what's going to drive you forward. If you are strong in yourself, your Chariot will be strong, and your Chariot will drive you strong, no matter what stones or speed bumps or whatever pops up along the road. Your Chariot's going to be good. And strength reminds you that integrity doesn't need to shout. Okay, strength is not aggressive. A lot of people, when they think about strength, they're like, strong man, aggressive, strong. No. Okay. Strength is not loud. It's not aggressive. Fortitude is quiet. It just is. It simply stands strong within itself. Some questions to ponder. What values and beliefs are guiding you right now? Have you truly chosen them, or have they been inherited? When those beliefs are challenged, how do you respond? You don't have to have it all figured out, but the willingness to choose consciously again and again, that's where real growth lives. Thanks for listening. Until next time, remember, growth happens one small intentional step at a time. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode of 20-Minute Self-Development. If today's insights were helpful, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode, where I'll share another practical tool or technique for your personal growth journey. If you're looking for more personalized support, my self-development coaching offers a space to explore these tools at a deeper level and tailors them to your unique needs. You can also visit the Tam Dillon Academy for all my courses and upcoming programs to also help you along your self-development journey. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, and remember, growth happens one small intentional step at a time.